You change that kind of environment to one that's stinky and wet and cold and filled with manure, and she's fed a lot of grain. You've changed the conditions now, and the wrong kind of bacteria are going to inhabit that, and they're going to end up in the milk, and somebody's going to get sick. Especially, and this is really important, especially given that the general environment of the United States in terms of the American immune system is so depressed. Because with antibiotics and sterile foods and preservatives in foods, we don't have any gut biodiversity left in our gut as a general statement in the United States. And so the next little bug that comes along, whether it be good or bad, could cause a real disruption in your immune system yourself and cause you to get sick. So, you know, as an American citizen going out and finding raw milk and you have a depressed immune system, you know, there's exceptional challenge there. It really is. Or somebody who's searching out raw milk in California who's been drinking raw milk before, and their immune system's pretty good shape, it's a little less of a problem. But if you got a really depressed immune system of the standard American going out and finding some bad milk from somebody that's intending their milk to be pasteurized, but you're going out and begging them for milk, that's kind of a marriage made in hell. That's not a good thing at all. And that's where I think a lot of the outbreaks happen is you see people doing research on the internet saying, oh, I have a really depressed immune system. I have common cold. I got irritable bowel syndrome. I got asthma. I got allergies. I need to fix that. And raw milk, they say, will fix it. But they don't have raw milk in their area that's safe, that's intended for people. So they go out and find a local dairy that takes pity on them and they buy raw milk from them. And that milk is intended for pasteurization. That's where you start seeing real problems.
Very important distinction, and I thank you really for providing a really spectacular set of guidelines to help people do their homework and do their due diligence. And they really only have to do it once. Once they identify this farmer, that's someone that they can have a relationship with and continue to purchase them for many years, hopefully. But I'm curious as to how one would identify that the cow is exposed to a source of good bacteria. I just don't understand how they would do that.
Well, you don't know for certain because, you know, bacteria are invisible, but you can generally get a pretty good sense of the right kind of bacteria by knowing that the cow is in an environment which is biologically diverse and healthy.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is a pasture,
Mm-hmm.
one that doesn't have a lot of manure or mud in it, one that's growing and live. So the humic acid bacteria from the actual growth of the plant itself on the side, and then you've got sun helping with the sun drenching of the environment. That helps a lot. And if she's allowed to pasture graze away from her manure to new greener pastures, that's the natural sequence that would have happened, 150 years ago when mankind didn't have big confinement facilities. They had cows on pasture, where they moved from pasture to pasture to pasture because that's how they fed the cows.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how cows would stay clean, is laying down in a green piece of pasture versus an old muddy one. So that's kind of a beginning to look at that. I would say also that if a cow is confined, let's say over the wintertime in, let's say, Maine or Connecticut or Pennsylvania, that cow is allowed a place to lay down that is dry, maybe some wood chips or straw or something where she can stay fairly dry and fairly clean, and that the farmer takes diligence to keep her clean.
Okay.
That's a little bit more work to do, but in those colder, wetter climates in northern America, you kind of have to do some exceptional work to keep that cow in a set of conditions which are going to be safe for, producing that raw milk for human consumption.
Just common sense when you think about it, but but a person like yourself who's been doing this a good portion of his life can really provide us with these expedited way method to find these recommendations. Now, personally, another curiosity is that both pretty harsh winters, and those green pastures are not present all year round. Now, fortunately, as we're recording this, it's the beginning of spring, and the pastures are abundant in most of the country. But certainly in the winter, in most areas in the country, that we just don't have access to fresh growing grass. So, what you had mentioned earlier that it was wise to limit the amount of grain per day to 7 pounds a day or less. So, what do you recommend and encourage these cows to eat during the winter phases when they don't have access to pasture?
Well, forage, dried alfalfa, timothy grass, other cut pasturage or forage that will be dried and then fed to the cow over the wintertime is perfectly fine. And the number 7 pounds of grain is an arbitrary number I came up with, which is kind of an average of what I've seen between 5 and 8 pounds or whatever. But you want to have it limited. The other 40 pounds or 35 pounds of feed that the cow gets should be mostly forage-based. Now, a cow only produces milk when she has an excess of energy, because remember, the first thing that's going to happen to that cow is her udder's going to dry up if she doesn't have enough energy so she can preserve herself. The same thing happens with human mothers who don't eat well enough. They'll dry off the baby before they'll hurt the mother. So cow has to have that extra energy in order to provide milk to milk the cow. So what I've seen in the northern climates has been kind of the hoop barn with the translucent canvas covers that allows sunlight to come through that stay kind of warm. And then they put bedding on the floor, or maybe a compost bedding or manure compost bedding that's dry. And then they meticulously maintain that so the cows have a good dry place to lay down. And that's been a successful thing, and that's not the only way to do it, but that's one of the ways I've seen people successfully keep the sunshine on the cow, keep the cow protected from wind and rain, keep her out of the wet, as well as keep her in a dry place to lay down in the colder climates before they get out to pastures in the spring and summer and fall.
Now, just another quick question, because I'm a city boy and virtually no experience on the farm. Do cows lay down when they sleep?
Absolutely. They love to lay down.
Okay. I would think so, but I wasn't sure. So thank you for that. Just a quick question on organic pastures. Is that the largest dairy in the United States that produces raw milk?
Actually, my research says that we're the largest organic raw dairy in the world.
Congratulations. That's just great.
Well, I don't actually want to be the biggest. I want to be the best.
Mm-hmm.
Being big isn't necessarily good, but being the best is absolutely good. So, you can't cheat Mother Nature when you do raw milk.
You can't.
That's the big thing. You can cheat Mother Nature when you do pasteurized milk because your sins can be covered up with the heating and killing of the bacteria. Most of the time, I should say, because there's more and more bacteria getting by the pasteurizer. But when you work with cows to produce raw milk, you can't cheat. There's integrity comes through whether you like it or not. So you kind of have to make a pact with Mother Nature and work with the forces that are out there that are powerful and wonderful. And we see those in the healing of immune systems and so on and so forth, which are very powerful when you have that biodiversity reseeding the gut and recolonizing the gut. But you can't fool her. You have to work with her. And with pastures, pasture is optimal, obviously, because it helps the nutrition of the milk. But if you don't have a pasture in the wintertime, then you have to use some other kind of man-made contrivance that's going to work with the cow to help her maintain her immune system and keep the right pH going on in the gut.
All right, I was in California last week presenting at David Wolf's Longevity Conference and looking forward actually to being able to purchase raw milk. But it wasn't there, and I'm wondering if this is related to some of the fighting and fuss, market jealousy, and CAFO systems, or is that another issue going on?
No, I think that there's about 400 stores in California 3 weeks ago that were carrying raw milk. Now there's about 340 or so. Whole Foods, as a national policy, not just California, but all 4 states that they carry their raw milk in, decided to discontinue raw milk sales nationally. And that impacted us. About 55 stores or so were discontinued in California a couple weeks ago. So we were added back another 15 stores or so to make up the difference in the key areas where Whole Foods was the only vendor. So there's plenty of raw milk in California and other stores, and you can go to our store locator and find the store easily at organicpastures.com. You just put your zip code in, it tells you the 10 closest stores.
Oh, excellent. That's terrific. So.
Yeah.
To organicpastures.com, go in there, type in your zip code, and you'll find the closest store to you. Now, it may be a few states away, but if you're in a state where it's legal, then you'll be able to find the one closest.
Well, that's in California alone. Obviously, we can't take raw milk across state lines. The FDA has there's a rule against that.
Oh.
CFR 1240.61 does not allow us to take raw milk across state lines. So it's only a California legal product at this point. And I'm actually got in a lot of trouble with the FDA a couple of years ago for selling pet milk nationally and internationally. I had to settle a big criminal complaint with them. So, yeah, they're pretty serious about enforcing it.